Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Not Your Mother's History Class. I'm Sydney.
And I'm Caleb.
And our cats have not joined us yet, but they're somewhere, so let's get into it. So today, Caleb is going to be guiding us in our conversation about today's topic. I am super excited about that because I'm really looking forward to just sitting right here and listening while Caleb tells us something new.
Yeah.
He did tell me a little bit about it just so I would have like an overview of like the content we would be talking about. So trigger warnings for today would be murder, suicide. I think that kind of covers it just within murder and suicide.
Yeah,
stabbing and guns, that sort of thing. So if that makes you uncomfortable, we understand if you'd like to sit this one out. So without further ado, Caleb, please tell us the story of the other couple that was in the booth that night with Abraham Lincoln the night he was shot.
So the Lincoln assassination, it was a turning point in U.S. history. Pretty much everyone knows about it. But what most people do not know is that there was another couple in the booth with Lincoln and his wife whenever he was shot. It was Henry Rathbone and his girlfriend at the time, Clara Harris.
Okay.
So a little bit of backstory on Henry. He was born in Albany, New York. His dad was the first elected mayor of New York.
Interesting.
After his dad died, he received a small sum of $200,000, which is $5.8 million today.
Jeez.
So he was a rich man.
Oh my God.
Yeah. His mom, after she was widowed, she married a U.S. Senator, Ira Harris.
Okay.
He had 4 children of his own. One of them was Clara. Looking into this is when this got interesting to me because
oh my God.
Henry Rathbone fell in love with his then stepsister.
Oh no, they're still step siblings. Not then.
Yeah,
they're still step siblings.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so Henry and Clara, step siblings, fell in love. It was common at this time in the mid 1800s. I'm assuming.
We can only assume.
Yeah. And they got engaged shortly before the Civil War broke out. Throughout the war, he just joined the Union Army, fought in the infantry, and ended up at a desk job at the end of the war.
Who works desk jobs?
Yeah.
God.
So throughout the war, Henry and his fiancée Clara were socialites, is what I read. So they were into politics. Yeah. And they met Lincoln and his wife Mary, and they just became friends through means I do not know. So, on April 14th, 1865, Henry and Clara both received an invitation from Lincoln and his wife Mary to go to the Ford Theater.
Nothing has ever happened bad there, right?
Nothing famous about that place.
No.
Interesting is that Henry and Clara were invited because the original invitees were Ulysses Grant and his wife, and they declined.
Huh.
So it's really interesting to think how...
Like, what would have happened, do you think, if they had said yes? Like, if they were there?
Yeah.
And not to say anything bad about Henry, that, like, he could have stopped it and didn't, but, like, what if Ulysses, which I really feel like I don't say that right, but I'm doing my best, and everyone knows who we're talking about.
Yes.
I feel like if he was there, there's a possibility he could have stopped it.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know that anyone could have, really, but it's just interesting to think, like, those small little decisions you can make about, you know, like, smallest decisions in your life of, like, oh, you know what? Babe, I don't feel like going with Abe to the theater tonight, you know?
Honest Abe, yeah. For clarification, Ulysses Grant was, like, the top Union general, so very close to Lincoln and then later president.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so... Who knows what could have happened if he was there. So anyways, Henry and his fiancée Clara are invited instead.
Stepsister. Fiancée.
And they attend the theater with Abe.
Old Abe.
Abe and Mary Lincoln.
He could have never saw it coming.
No.
Literally, because he was behind him. Anyway.
Wow.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. At 10:14 p.m., John Wilkes Booth enters the presidential box and shoots Lincoln in the head. Yeah, shocker. This is news.
Yeah. Was this the mystery part?
This was the mystery the entire time.
Okay.
Once the gun was fired and Lincoln was shot, immediately Henry stands up and he tries to apprehend John Wilkes Booth and tries to tackle him. Mm-hmm. And if you see in paintings, recreations of this, you'll always see a man sitting next to Abe, getting up and reaching. Oh. And seeing that is what made me look into who is that guy who was in there.
You know what? I've seen that, and I never really thought anything about it, who that was. Because I always just think it's some a politician, someone that was close to him. Which I guess in this case that's correct. I just never thought, well, it's that person's story. So I like hearing this side of it. But you go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So he gets up and tries to tackle Booth. He was not able to because John Wilkes Booth had a dagger on him. And this part of the story
you prepared.
Yeah, this part of the story you never hear about. You only hear about him just shooting Lincoln
and fleeing.
Yeah. As Henry's trying to stop him, John Wilkes Booth stabs Henry in the arm. He stabs him from the elbow up to the shoulder.
Ow. I don't know why. Thinking about there's certain places that I think getting stabbed would just be so much worse than a normal stabbing. And I feel like the elbow is one of those. You hit your funny bone and you're out for at least 30 seconds.
Oh,
imagine getting stabbed. It's not funny. But
No. But despite that, Henry, I guess, on adrenaline, whatever, he's still trying to stop him. Mm-hmm. As John is stepping out of the box, he's trying to escape. Henry grabs him by the end of his coat and, tries to tug him down. It causes John Wilkes to, kind of stumble out of the box, and instead of jumping down like he planned to, he kind of fell onto the stage, which supposedly is what broke his leg.
Interesting. Okay.
Not confirmed, so...
That's just kind of speculated.
Just speculated that is what caused the injury.
Nice. Okay.
Talk about break a leg.
Yeah.
That's too good. Despite suffering an extremely brutal stab wound all the way up his arm and witnessing, this president of the United States being shot, Henry gathers himself and he escorts Clara and Mary across the street to where Lincoln is being,
where the doctor was.
Where the doctor was, the surgeon that was looking over Lincoln. It's all happening very quickly.
Right.
There, once he gets everyone there, he eventually passes out from blood loss.
Well, yeah.
From, getting stabbed.
Yeah.
After the surgeon is done examining Lincoln and he moves on to Henry, that's when it's discovered that he was stabbed all the way down to the bone. Not just like a flesh wound, down to the bone. And it sliced an artery too, which is what caused him to, pass out from blood loss. It's a very major thing to get hit.
And I feel like that was not a sterile dagger.
No.
So if the blood loss didn't take him out, I'd be surprised if infection didn't. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, germ theory was still just a theory then.
Just a theory. Anyway.
Once he recovered and he was bandaged up, Abe Lincoln died the next day at 7:22 a.m.
On what day?
On April 15th.
No one has any idea why that day is important.
Not important at all.
It's my birthday.
And
I was wondering. Honestly, we could do an entire episode on all the bad shit that's happened on April 15th in history. And I want to go into it right now because it's so fascinating to me. I use it as my interesting fact or whatever. Every time I'm asked to list an interesting fact about yourself, that's what I go with.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and I think we might use it at some point. Possibly. But anyway, yeah. Died on my birthday. Anyway. Not that I was born on his death day. He was killed on my birthday. Or he died on my birthday.
It took him quite a while to die, which that was something else that I learned.
Mm-hmm.
Took him a while. So, after this event, it really took an extreme toll on Henry. Because
pretty traumatizing.
Yeah. He felt like he could have prevented this in some way, even if that wasn't really possible.
Yeah.
Because I think he reacted quicker than I think anyone would have. From all accounts, he was up immediately after the shot went out. So I don't know how much more he could have done, But of course, survivor's guilt.
Yeah, I was going to say survivor's guilt is really, really harsh and really traumatizing. And of course, no one else. And that's what we mentioned earlier, Ulysses Grant, like, well, he could have stopped him or something. Like, we don't know that.
Never know.
All their backs were turned. No one heard this man coming, obviously. No. And so it really sucks to know that he lived with that guilt for probably the rest of his life.
Yes, and it affected him in extremely, harmful ways mentally, which we'll get to. 2 years later, him and his, now wife, they got married. Stepsister, again. They got married and had 3 children. Which, interestingly enough, one of them became a congressman, Henry Riggs.
Okay, so there's definitely a pattern here of, politicians and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very...
His dad was the mayor, right? Is that what you said?
First mayor of Albany, New York.
First mayor of Albany, yep. And then he ended up... so very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyways, so throughout all of his life, he just... really messed him up. He would get angry. He would become jealous of his wife, spending time with his children. He would come up with these baseless claims that she was unfaithful to him.
Okay.
It just created a very bad time for everyone involved.
Sure.
Just like his whole family, it was an awful stain on their time. So after he retired from the military, they decided to move to Germany to try to get a, fresh start. Clean slate, let's put all of that behind us, and let's just try to, get him back to who Henry used to be.
Right.
Unfortunately, that did not happen. According to his children, it really only made it worse for him to be away from the U.S., and it just took a terrible turn a couple years later on December 23rd, 1883. He attacked his children out of a spurt of sudden anger.
Jeez.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. His mental instability and unwellness was not, sudden, but this attack was just, they had no idea why or what he was doing. His wife, Clara, being the mother she is, puts herself in between her children and Henry. Yep. That is what a mother does.
Right.
Instinct. Unfortunately, he kills her by stabbing and by shooting her. It's just...
Jeez. That's so sad.
Yeah. It's in front of the children, too.
Do you know how old the kids were? You don't. It's okay. I just thought yeah. I mean, they're obviously probably young enough to be, defenseless, I would think, so... Wow.
And...
That's awful.
He tried to commit suicide by stabbing himself 5 times.
5 times?
5 times. But he was unsuccessful, and the police arrested him and charged him with murder of his wife, Clara. Later, doctors would diagnose him clinically insane.
Makes sense.
Kind of obvious at this point in the story. And he was admitted to an insane asylum in Germany.
Okay.
Where he would live out the rest of his days until he died in 1911.
That's really sad, because insane asylums back then...
I can only imagine.
Terrible. I mean, I know they were bad in, the mid-1900s, because you hear a lot of stories about that. Mm-hmm. But, there she is. She's making an appearance now. But imagine how bad insane asylums probably were, the quality of life that patients would have in the early 1900s, late 1800s, whatever.
In Germany.
Oh.
Right before World War I broke out. So.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he shouldn't have killed his wife or attacked his children, obviously, but he needed help, and I know that there was no way that kind of proper medical care was available to him. Mental health care was available to him at that time. He was not fortunate enough to live in a time like we do where we can get proper mental health care, or that people took mental health seriously.
Yeah, it is unfortunate.
Very sad.
That event of Lincoln being shot in front of him and him trying to stop John Wilkes Booth, being unsuccessful, not only stopping Lincoln from being killed, but also stopping John from, being arrested right then and there.
Right.
Because he would go on to be at large 12 days later, and he would blame himself for that too.
And I think when you really think about it, obviously the entire country was affected by the fact that Abe Lincoln was shot and killed. But this man's life was so personally affected by, his life spiraled. The rest of his life was negatively impacted because of being there that night. So let's also think about what if it was Ulysses Grant that was there that night? Yeah. How would he have spiraled? Would he have become president? Would he have dealt with so much survivor's guilt that he would have lost his mind?
That is a great point. I do not know.
These small little decisions people can make can change the course of literal history. It's like with that first topic that we covered, that so many things happened,
perfectly.
Perfectly, almost. For lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
Things fell into place, this man got shot in the head and, survived, and then the person found him, and then that ancestor of that person found out it was just a whole domino effect of things that had happened that were just by chance, really. And that's kind of what happened here, if you really get down into it, because it could have been somebody else. And that person could have never been president. And if that person was never president, would the next president have been who it was, and, so on and so on.
Right.
That is very interesting. Huh. Well, thank you, Caleb, for teaching us something. Yeah. I thought that was really great. Thank you. Okay, so not only did she knock a lamp over, it scratched the wall.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nova.
So anyway, we had to add a little bit of entertainment there at the end for you, or she did. So I thought that was very fascinating, and I really like kind of looking into the what ifs of that situation. And it really sucks that he never got the help he needed, and that he lived the rest of his days in a insane asylum.
Just to reiterate, just how insane this whole story is, that it all came from just seeing that man in that painting, and not knowing what his story was,
and wanting to know,
learning.
Yeah.
Just how tragic it was for everyone involved.
Really... Thank you guys so much for joining us today for our third episode of Not Your Mother's History Class. If you are listening to us on Spotify, hello, welcome. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome to our home. We're glad you got to see our cats yet again.
It's that bonus point for watching on YouTube.
It is that bonus points, and you get to see the visual guides that we include here to kind of help illustrate the story. And if you're listening on Spotify, try and tune in on YouTube every now and then if you can.
Yeah, you get some extra bits. You get to see some visuals.
Yep. So, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.